Hey, it's Jonathan Lunger at Hologramchat.com, and this is episode 73 of the Fireside Chat. And tonight, for the fourth time, I have my friend Marcia Bell here as a guest for an interview. And tonight we're going to be talking about the concept of inclusiveness. And, like, imagine there was a birthday party where 9 people had a piece of cake and there was 10 people invited to the party, and you're hoping that there was a 10th piece in the freezer so everyone would have a piece, or else everyone would get a smaller sliver. But in some situations, people choose to divvy it up so everyone gets a piece, and in some situations, people choose to just have somebody left out. And I talked to my friend Chuck tonight, and we back in high school were always the type that were inclusive of everybody, and it's never cool to exclude people, and that's a worldwide phenomenon. It's a worldwide concept that we should all practice sharing and not get caught up in that clique stuff. So thank you so much, Marcia, for being here again. How you doing?
Oh, thank you for having me.
No doubt.
Always a pleasure.
Definitely. So what do you think about the clique stuff and the inclusiveness versus exclusivity of these social things?
Well, I feel that in the sense of the word clique, that to me has more of a negative connotation.
Right.
When a group of people who, in my view, are insignificant come together and decide that they're going to decide who can join them and who cannot.
Right.
That to me, I see it in a more negative sense, and I'm not for it.
Me too.
I'm not for it. In terms of this, if there were 9 pieces, if it was a clique, my perception of a clique is that there would be 9 pieces, and the 9 pieces would go to the top people. And whoever that one person who was 1 point below, for whatever reason,
Right.
maybe they lived out of the zip code, or they use some sort of superficial measurement,
Right.
to establish who deserved a piece of cake and who didn't.
Right.
That's what I see a clique. I see a clique. If it's not a clique, then we could have other scenarios, such as, well, the host saying, well, no, nobody's going to have anything if there's not enough, or everybody
Right.
cut off 1/9 or 1/10 or whatever, 1/10 of your piece and make
Right.
another piece.
Yeah.
But if it's a clique, the clique gets the 9 pieces and the 10th person is with nothing. That's the way I see it.
Right. And that's not cool, because like in if you talk about the spirituality or the religion, like Jesus broke up the fish and the bread to feed how many people? Was it 2,000 people, or it was a lot of people? The multitudes.
It's 12 o'clock.
Yeah, the multitudes. I don't know if they even gave a specific number of the people.
Right, but he showed that there's enough to go around if you learn to share.
Exactly. You could make it.
Right.
You can make it happen.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's true in business, and it's true in kindergarten, middle school, high schools, college. It's true in Rotary clubs. It's true in so many different aspects. Governments. It's true in so many areas. And if we could all just learn to realize that there's enough abundance for everybody, we don't need to make anybody feel left out.
Yeah, kind of to an extent. again, it's like the idea of artificial borders.
Right.
You know, we make artificial borders. Like, of course, when you're divvying up land, you have to say, well, okay, this is where one state or country begins, and this is where the next one, this is where one ends, and this is where the other one begins. But,
Right.
you know, there's a lot of too many cases these days where people are establishing these artificial boundaries with no real basis. I think, you know, we had even talked before, I don't know if you recall, but we were comparing it at one point to bullying.
Right.
And that it's a fine line between the clique, being in a clique,
Right.
living in a clique type mentality, and being a bully or having a bully type mentality,
Mm-hmm.
where you're controlling other people for the benefit of who knows what. I don't know, there's some benefit involved.
Yeah.
And usually it's some person who's just lacking in some way, because who would need to manipulate their own situation? Why couldn't they just go with the flow, per se?
Right. That reminds me of, I once had this neighbor who had a website called fallenflags.com.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept behind that was that even though there's so many nations on Earth with so many different flags, imagine if all the borders and all the flags and all the countries melted away. We'd all just have to be nice to each other and have to get along as a global community. And, you know, it's a concept that, like, John Lennon talked about when he sung about Imagine, that song Imagine, about what if there was peace on Earth. You know, you'd be able to travel anywhere. You wouldn't have to worry about traveling to a certain zone that didn't like your certain way of life.
But see, that's what living in the world is all about. That the last time there was peace on Earth was right before World War I. That's when there was absolutely peace. It was quiet. It was
Right.
peacetime.
Right.
Nothing was going on. And then some little insignificant argument that, you know, ended up in someone being assassinated.
Right.
Turned into World War I, and after that, there's never been peace again.
Yeah.
So when there's peace in the world, it's going to be short-lived for whatever reason. It may have to do going back to the history of the world with God and the devil and the whole shebang with that.
Right. Yeah.
Because once they, you know, at the story of Adam and Eve, let's just say the story that we all know, if we interpreted it, it's probably much more complicated than the way it's presented to us. But
Right.
Since whatever happened there cannot be any peace on Earth for any, you know, substantial amount of time.
Right. Like, I watched a debate the other day, and they were debating whether aliens created the pyramids, and I happen to agree with the side of the guy who said it was not done by aliens, because if you look at empirical evidence, there's no proof or empirical evidence that shows aliens came down and made this stuff. And,
well, I mean, that's such a simple fix, isn't it? To
Right.
say, well, you know, like, about, a couple, 3 weeks ago, I was looking for something, I had made, and I know it's not good, but bacon. I had made some bacon, and I was going to make it into bacon crumbs, like bacon bits for a salad.
Right.
and I couldn't find it anywhere, and I kept looking, and I was asking my daughter, did you see this piece of bacon that I had? I had fried some bacon, I put it over to the side, it was gone. I looked everywhere. I looked in the refrigerator, I looked in the freezer, I looked in my office, I looked in the living room, I looked in the dining room, I looked in the bedrooms, I looked in the cabinets, I looked in the, I looked in the dishwasher, I looked I even went in the basement, I looked everywhere.
Right.
And finally, I just said, you know what? Either an alien or a ghost took it.
Right.
You see what I mean? And you know what had actually happened is I had asked my daughter if she had eaten it, and she said no because she wasn't paying attention to me on the computer. And then after I had decided that a Martian or a ghost took it, she said, oh, yeah, I think I did eat it. So, I mean, it's easy to say,
right.
oh, yeah, an alien built the pyramids.
Right.
Yeah, come on. Right? Come on. When you can't figure something out, of course a ghost did it, or, some supernatural. Basically, if the aliens built the pyramids, they're saying a supernatural.
Right.
Something supernatural.
Right, and I'm not saying that aliens and all that stuff doesn't exist, but don't tell me that they built the pyramids without any evidence.
Exactly.
You know, they would have put some copyright on it at least. They would have put a C with a circle around it.
Yep.
Or they would have put a trademark TM with a circle.
Trademark. Sure.
You know, dead giveaway.
Dead giveaway. Yep. Yep. There ain't nobody, come on.
Yeah.
When was the last time an alien came and did something on Earth that we have recorded?
Right.
I mean, it has to be at least 2 recordings of it. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean,
Wouldn't you say you would have to have at least 2 recordings?
Right.
If they built the pyramids, the only way we could even consider it to be a possibility is if they also did something else on Earth that we couldn't attribute, that could only be attributed to them.
Right.
And there's a lot of mysteries, but they can't necessarily be attributed to aliens, because you need to have evidence of the aliens.
Right, and like for sure, Hollywood with all its money, they would have definitely been like, look, we'll give you guys anything you want from this earth if you just make a video for us and show us some proof. So it's not like they haven't tried to make offers to the universe.
Exactly.
But, that's, if it was real, then I'm not saying aliens don't exist. I'm just saying that they're probably taking notes on the ancient Egyptians' techniques of building pyramids because they couldn't do it themselves.
And that's basically what they're doing. Is they have found that there's no real evidence in Europe of these particular calculations. That this is my theory, and I have no basis. I'm not saying it's got anything to do with aliens or anything. This is my own personal basis. That the reason that they're trying to attribute it to aliens is because they don't want to attribute it to Africa.
Exactly.
Because in Europe, they're looking and looking and looking and looking and saying, well, we must have some calculations that we can that correlate.
Right.
If not correspond, but at least correlate.
Exactly.
that exist, that are similar, even if they're not related, that exist, that are similar to the Egyptian calculations. And they can't find it. The whole numeric system was completely different of ancient Egypt and ancient Europe.
Right.
There's no correlation. There's no correspondence. There's no nothing. So they don't want to attribute it to Africa.
Right.
Because Africa is just a continent treatment of savages. And so
Right.
to admit something like that, which is, turn
Yeah.
the world on
Yeah, I mean
at its core.
I mean all civilization came from Africa, Al-Kibalan. And like I watched an interview the other day on Sadnetter TV where Brother Polite was debating Shaka Atmos, and the concept, this same topic was covered, and one of the things that was brought up was that who were the people that first said the the pyramids were built by aliens, and it was basically the Europeans who were saying this stuff. And the reason they were saying that is the same reason Alexander the Not So Great tried to lock up all the temples in Egypt, because he didn't want the indigenous people
people who may be indigenous at this particular point.
Right.
Maybe they were one of the great civilizations 1,000 years, 5,000, 10,000 years before, and the remnants. Because you think, too, not to change the subject, but think about the Incas and the Mayans.
Right.
How they were this great civilization, and then they disappeared, gone. They have no idea what happened to them. They just disappeared. Well, the remnants are the indigenous people.
Right.
And the indigenous people may have been just the ones who were the simple people who were living with the earth. And maybe the people who live with the earth are actually the civilized people.
Exactly. And we know it's not a mystery. Like, people don't disappear. Like, the people who commit these genocide Holocaust acts, like in Nazi Germany and the African transatlantic slave trade, like these people who commit these atrocities, killing multi-millions of people, we're not fools. We know that these people didn't just all of a sudden disappear.
There's some logical explanation.
Right. Exactly.
And there's physical evidence that is either being hidden,
right,
concealed, or destroyed.
Right. And I think
whatever extent it could be destroyed. I mean, maybe eventually we could find out. But obviously, things just don't happen supernaturally, not on Earth. Maybe on another planet, maybe in another galaxy, supernatural things happen. That's just the way of their dimension, and that dimension is supernatural. But here, it's not supernatural.
Right, and I mean, I think
a supernatural dimension.
Right, and there's a famous Hollywood actor, Anthony Hopkins, and he said that it would be something. He said something like it would be arrogance for us to assume that there's no intelligent life form in the universe.
Oh, that of course. I mean, think of how. I mean, it's infinite.
Right.
So if it goes on and 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 on,
right.
What are the chances? This is the best there is?
Right. And based on that common sense, it would actually be like an insult to the aliens to say that they would be the ones causing all these people to disappear.
Really?
You know? It's
to
like
attribute anything. Well, it's like people who, I was even, when I'm working, I have my office, but a lot of times I'll just stay and work from home, right? Because it's the lazy thing to do. It's convenient.
I do the same thing.
Oh gosh, don't let me lose my train of thought. I was watching one of these shows, one of these reality, court shows, and they were just giving that just example about how easy it is to attribute. Oh, they were saying that this one, I think it was on divorce court or something, it was saying that the guy wanted to get a divorce from his wife.
Right.
And so in order to justify his reasons for, getting the divorce and separating, he was attributing the fact that she was expecting another baby. It was her fault that she wasn't taking birth during the course of the show, the judge, the wife brought up, as well as the judge, says, if you thought that maybe I was trying to have a baby, why weren't you taking precautions on your end?
Right.
Because he was saying, well, I wasn't trusting her. I couldn't trust her. I didn't know. And the thing is so much is in our court.
Right.
Things are in our court, but as soon as something happens, we're looking for someone to blame.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how strong or how weak it is. And so, I'm probably getting off the subject so much, going into different tangents and stuff, but I think basically what I'm trying to say is that, getting back to making up these excuses about why, making these explanations of why these things happen is just what's convenient for us.
Right. And I mean, I'm not trying to get off the subject of the click stuff, but I think this all connects, and the reason why I want to bring this other topic up is because, like, people know about the Dogon people, Dogon or Dogon, however you pronounce it, of Mali, and how they claim to have radio contact with beings from Syria A, B, or C. And our modern day Western science, with our telescopes, didn't understand or see this stuff until 100 years ago. And so, if you think about all that stuff and do the knowledge and logic about that, you have to come to the conclusion that back in the day they had either telescopes or high-powered radios, or some type of technology to where they were communicating with, stuff way beyond our planet, and they had higher mathematics than we still can't build a pyramid. People in Japan tried to do it with a helicopter, and they couldn't do it. So why is it that people want to just give credit to aliens? That's to me that's a form of racism.
Well, the thing is too is that you have to have such a pull on people or an influence on people's minds to convince them. I mean, all through history, there's just been hoax after hoax after hoax after hoax. And there are these hoaxes, such as what you're discussing, of aliens building the pyramids. That's a hoax. That's what you would call a hoax. But there's enough people believing it or accepting it to even allow it to be printed and in an accepted theory. Now, if there were, let's say, the population of let's just say of the United States, let's say of the Western world, a significant enough portion of the Western society was literate, meaning could read and could write, we would not have theories like this accepted. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's saying that's what it's telling us where our culture and our society is in this day and time. Back thousands of years ago, you didn't have so much illiteracy.
And like people who call themselves a Muslim or call themselves a Christian or call themselves Hebrew or Jew, all this stuff came from ancient Egypt. So if you were trying to say that all of these religions or belief systems came from the original source of Egypt, why would you not consider also that your skyscrapers in China and Taipei, all these places in New York, these skyscrapers, okay, maybe your skyscrapers are taller than a pyramid, but they're not going to stand the test of time of
They're
that.
not going to.
Yeah.
I mean, you see all the time. I mean, not and okay. You see, for example, these buildings that fall.
Right.
Like they said that the Twin Towers would not fall
Right.
if no matter what. And
Right.
even right before 9/11, they had made this documentary about how, the terrorists had tried to blow it up.
Right.
Remember when Clinton was president, they tried to blow it up, and they said, well, it's indestructible,
Right.
and nothing could happen. As soon as, of course, a plane, but a plane is not really that huge of a thing, to tell you the truth. But not only did it damage it, it caused it to fall. But that's a whole nother discussion altogether.
But the pyramids are still there, and that's a dead giveaway.
If you want to talk about, the physics of aerodynamics.
Sorry about that. I hit the hang up button here. But yeah, like the physics that you were talking about is, the pyramid is one of the most indestructible mathematical structures you could build, because when you have like, for instance, when you're doing yoga, if you split your legs wide, they call that the power stance. So when
you have a really good foundation.
Yeah, a wide stance means like the weeble wobbles, but it doesn't fall down.
It won't fall down. But even the way the pyramid is it's not a triangle, it's actually a square.
Right.
But it's set at an angle, so it just can't fall down.
Right.
It can't fall down. It's 4 points.
Right.
4 points. And then it comes to a three-dimensional triangular looking, but it's got 4 points.
Right.
So how could it fall down?
Right.
A triangle, if you did 3 triangles, I don't know if it's 3 triangles to make a three-dimensional triangle based from 3, but that's a 4 point, and then it comes into a kind of a cubic triangle, and that, I think that's the key to the pyramid not being destructible. But what's so interesting too about the pyramids is that, the way they were built is that people go in there and they can't come out if they don't know.
Right.
Because it's so booby trapped.
Right. They knew people would come by and try to be grave robbers and scandalous grave robbers.
But there's people who got in there to do grave robbing and did not get out.
Exactly. They were ready for them.
Yeah, because they said, okay, you come in this way, but you got to go out that way.
Right.
You can't come in the same way you went out. You try to come in the same way you try to go out the same way you went in, you're not going to get out.
Right. People come in trying to grave rob, and they're going to get that toxic mold.
And then there's the toxic gases and the this stuff was built.
Right.
Can you imagine? Not only did they have it built structurally sound, is the interior of it, not just the exterior.
Right.
They said that when it was originally built, it was completely covered in gold.
Yeah, exactly.
And the gold wore off. So if you could have just seen what that looked like, that must have just been,
Right. I don't think it wore off. I think the grave robbers took that first.
Oh, that's probably right. They chipped it off.
Right. That's what I think.
True. People were chipping it off for sure.
But hey, I would love to do a bunch more episodes on this topic, because I want to research more of this now. I'm excited about learning more about this. And even though we started on the topic of not letting people form cliques that are exclusive.
But it's all connected.
It is.
We're going to bring it all the way back in the circle that it is.
Exactly. 360 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
It's all connected.
Yeah. It's all connected. You watch.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much, Marcia, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you being the bona fide cat whisperer, and I'm glad
I'm
that.
still whispering to them cats.
Yeah, I'm glad about the talent agent thing, and I'm glad that the kitty selfie and the cat shorts and.
Oh yeah, you got to check out the kitty website on YouTube too.
Yeah. Catnip video and the catshorts.com and kitty selfie. It's gonna be on and popping.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, you have a great night. I appreciate it and look forward to our next broadcast.
Oh, thanks. Me too, John. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.
You too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.